But first she has to prove herself to a benefactor. She has to survive the challenges of Arkology, lest she'd end up in the Styx, like so many that perish in this place. Can Igraine prove herself to these interdimensional exiles? Find out in Bound for the Styx. Go. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is Bansert, Bokel of Radio Retrofuture, and today I have a very special guest with me. Hello, Michael. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm very grateful to be with you all today.
Yes, and thank you for being here as well as our guest today. Before I get into the domestic announcements, could you tell us a little bit about who you are and how you got here?
Yeah, well, I got here because I had the pleasure of chatting with you, I think last week,
Yeah.
and we were chatting about writing and publishing and technology, which is kind of what my life is. I'm currently a student in college. I'm about to enter my senior year at Harvard. I've published 12 sci-fi thriller novels. One of my series was cyberpunk. So got cyberpunk and then steampunk. We're very, very friendly there. And I'm also the CEO and co-founder of a publishing platform called Ream, which we help authors make money with subscriptions and sell directly to their fans. So yeah, basically my whole life is technology and publishing and writing. And I got here because I met you and a call, and it was a lot of fun.
Yes, likewise, likewise. And before I get into how I came in contact with you, I have some domestic announcements. Last weekend, we had our first role playing stream, which was also our 5,000 subscriber special. And what else did we? Oh, yeah, it was my birthday that week as well, so we celebrated that. However, I also announced that I was having problems with uploading a new version of this book on Amazon. I finally figured out what was wrong. So, you guys, I can finally order the books this Friday and get the rewards out there. So, I'm very happy about that. Well, how did we get here? I am doing like a Kickstarter course this year on how to do a Kickstarter. We had a Kickstarter this year for Bound for the Styx, which is out now as well. And yes, I might also put it
Beautiful.
on Ream soon as well. Right now, only the Wrench in the Machine is there. That also got a new upgrade during the last Kickstarter, so I'm very happy about that. And yeah, what else? And that's how you were a guest on Russell's stream, one of the organizers of
Yes.
the NBA. That's how I learned of Ream. And that's one of the most useful things about the seminar for me. It's like all these the new websites, the new technology, the AI stuff. Um, so that's what I find most valuable about it. And yeah, on all the, just talking about the future of the industry, which I'm very new. I published my first book in 2021. That was the short comic called Call Girl. The new
So,
comic, the illustrations are done, so we can start with the lettering very soon. And
hey,
yeah, so yeah, we've got a lot of moving behind the scenes as well. So in a short time, but I wish I started writing sooner. I have those regrets, but yeah, well, it's that's life.
hey, you still got plenty of stories left in you, and
Oh, I
never
do.
too late to
It's
start.
time that I worry about. That's That's a thing. But yeah, I guess we can just start with like how got Ream started, or let's start with you. Like, how did you get into writing?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, for me, writing was something that, you know, I think we all have the moment where you know you like something and you do it a little bit in your free time, but you don't call yourself, whether it's, a writer or a musician, you don't like identify as writer. So I think like when I started writing and when I felt like a writer are two different moments.
Mm.
I started writing like almost when I started to read. Like it just was something I felt the need to do. And I know like something I brought that almost everyone can relate to. Like you just it's what I was kind of born in that sense to create stories. So I was writing fan fiction before I knew what fan fiction was and before I really
Oh.
had like I didn't have a phone or a computer or a laptop or anything like that until I was like 12 or so. So I wasn't like on the internet a lot. So I was like writing my own fan fiction at 9, but I didn't know it was called fan fiction. I didn't know there was like a community of fan fiction out there. I would have probably loved that at that age. But when when I entered like middle school, I started to kind of have this identity crisis in my family because my mom's a single mom and she's really raised me and my brother. And we had moved from Long Island, New York, which is right outside of the city, to Charleston, South Carolina, which is why I say y'all now. And
Right.
that's why I say y'all. I'm a Southerner, I guess now, but I wasn't born in the South. And when we moved down, I started to realize that my dad, who I really looked up to him, played sports with him growing up, was not like who I thought he was. Like
Oh.
he was for a long time, um, just homeless. He was, eh, you know, I would say mentally unstable, and I think was still loving to me though. That's the thing. Like he was a loving guy to me, and so it was this thing where I was realizing that my dad had these demons, and that my dad, who I really looked up to, maybe wasn't the man that I wanted to be, even if he still loved me. And that was a challenging thing for me because I was trying to figure out who I wanted to be as a man and who I wanted to be as, as I was entering adolescence. So for me, how I processed that was writing. And that's when I started writing became something that I didn't just do for fun, but something that I needed. And I
Right.
needed to write.
Right.
And eventually it turned into a book. I was surprised. The tone was very depressing for that first draft, and I had to like lighten it up a little bit because it was probably more therapy than anything for me. But that's how I got into it. And I think when I realized, like I wrote a story with not the intention of it becoming a book, but when it became a book and I loved the feeling, I didn't think about publishing it. I didn't think about anything besides just like, I guess I should do it again. So I did it again. And by that time, I was in high school and I was like, okay, well, I have like now like 800 pages of books that I've written. They're all in a coherent series. And maybe I should think about getting out in the world. And that's when like my journey as a publisher began. But my writing journey began before that. And I think like everyone had no idea that it was possible to write a book, or at least possible for me to write a book, but I guess it is.
Hmm.
And had no idea that I could like pursue a career as an author. But like so many of us have realized that actually we can. So that's how it all started.
Yeah, it's quite amazing. I'm actually started writing a book based on the steampunk videos that I've made, called "Brass in the Age of Iron Age Media." Iron Age is a very new term. Are you familiar with
Yeah.
the term? Yeah. So for those who are not in the know, like Iron Age is like the you've got the Silver Age in comics, the Gold Age of comics, and this is kind of like the Iron Age where the independent creators are starting to, well, manifest themselves and in some cases even taking control of the market. That is the gist of it. There's probably more nuance to that, but that's basically the idea. And when you think about, like, in hindsight, of course, like, oh well, actually that's hail to the Iron Age creators. Thank you, John. And yeah, and actually, it was also the time for something like steampunk to emerge in that regard. Um, but it's also funny to me, and I'm now kind of riffing on the Iron Age topic. is that there's still elements of traditionally published people who are like, wow, publishers are using Kickstarter? How's that possible? Because that's happening now as well. But there's still a great resentment to self-publishing and crowdfunding. Is that something that you've experienced?
Actually, yes, yes. So I'll share two stories. So one was when I'd published my first book, I was doing a signing in Charlotte, North Carolina, but got sick. Like I got bad flu and had to cancel it. But the flyers were still up. So someone saw the flyer and contacted me, and they actually asked me to speak at a writing conference. I was like, "That's so cool! I'm gonna do that." And it was in Charlotte, so I drove up to Charlotte, and it was just like it was a really cool moment in my life. And when I was at the conference, mind you, at this time I was 16 years old, so I was like even more of a boy than I am now, and like
Just a
I was
second.
surprised. Oh,
Fixing something. Ah, just a moment.
oh, you're good.
Actually,
You're good. I'll pause my story. I'll pause my story.
okay. Then we're gonna fix this. And then it should be. Come
Trust
on.
me, I know these things happen. I'm very acquainted with how the last minute, you know, little bugs in the setup can go.
Yeah,
But
okay.
are they able to hear us? 'Cause if they
Yeah,
can,
well, we had an echo, so I switched to
okay.
thing, but it's not working for some reason. Why is it not working?
Is the echo on my end?
I don't know. Like I'm not hearing any echo, so I assuming that it's going through my mic, so that's why I'm putting on headphones. But now,
Maybe we could mute when we're not talking. That could probably solve it.
oh, that can also be an option. Okay. Let's
Yeah.
see.
Okay.
Just a moment.
Let us know if there's echo still. If there is, no worries. But I'll finish the story about me experiencing this because I have experienced it before. You know, there was a bunch of students who were at the conference because it was a writing conference for like college students and high school students who were getting their MFA at the time, which I think is great if someone wants to study and get their MFA. And I thought what they were doing was awesome. But when I sat at a lunch table with them during the conference, and mind you, I was like one of the speakers at this conference, they completely like told me like I can't believe you're doing self-publishing. You're not a real author. Like to my face. Like I was like just shocked, you know, especially because I'm like half their size and they're gonna like pick on me like that. But it still happens today in more traditional, especially academic circles. So when when I'm in college, like I take creative writing classes and I've written sometimes and published more books than my professor has, but they still refuse to acknowledge that I've published a book. Like it's like, you know what? I'm not gonna fight that battle. I'm just gonna take the class and learn more about writing. But it's unfortunate because like, you know, having recognition and respect does matter because you get to then have conversations and be closer with people that we can all learn from. But old ways of thinking kind of shut off that, and you know, yeah, it's sad. It's sad. So I have experienced it, but I think it's gotten better.
Okay, let me see. I'm still trying to work out why the system is not collaborating with me. Okay, I'm gonna. I don't know why it's not working. I had this thing the last time as well. Okay, I'm gonna switch to the old audio.
Type in the chat and see if you're here.
I think it has something to do with Zoom.
But
That
I don't know
Zoom.
if people can hear me, but if people can hear me, make I'll make sure everyone's entertained.
Okay, how is this, chat? How is this?
Comments, which is part of the problem. So if it seems like I'm like
Yeah, it's people complaining about the audio. I'm gonna lower the audio.
I will share a story I think we can all relate to, which is the moment when you like decide to kind of make a change in your life to be something that you want it to be, which also Hazard, please cut me off if you can hear me and are able to speak up, because I'm only doing this just so that if people can hear me, I'm not leaving people hanging. But to those who can, if you can hear me,
Okay, how's
whenever you're doing
this?
this, I know there's a moment where you realize that your life doesn't align with the life that you want to live, and that's a really scary moment. Like when you wake up, you look at yourself in the mirror and you're like, I'm miserable. And for some people, like, you sit with that misery and like it's with you for a while, but in other times you refuse to confront it and it hits you in a wave, and you kind of wake up and you realize that the story that you were telling yourself isn't really, oh, I see a change, hello, you know.
Okay, yeah, yeah. The system's really acting up right now, and I don't know why. I tried to fix something, and apparently I only made it worse just now, and I don't see the problem. Why? Because everything looks like it's in the green. So I'm wondering if I don't know what the problem is.
Yeah.
Oh, wait. What is this? How is this, chat? Is this working better? Can you hear me at least? Can you say something, please?
I can hear you.
Yeah. Yeah. Apparently, my software can hear you too. So I don't see. Okay, what I'm gonna do. Okay, he says he can hear us now, so it should be fixed. I hope the echo is gone at least. And yeah, don't mind the audio missing right now. Yeah. So please continue your story. I'm gonna fix my video settings for a moment.
Okay, you let me know when you're ready to pick, butt in when you're ready, and
Yeah, I'm
I'll
ready. Just go ahead. I can fix this. I really can. Honest guys.
no,
Um,
it happens. It's all good. Oh, I see you now.
yeah, there we go. See,
Hey,
I told you I could do it. Okay.
yes. Let's I was gonna share a story about just how like I know people listening probably have all had a moment where you realize that like the life that like you're living isn't the life that you want to live. And like that's weird, but like I had that moment when I was in high school when I realized that for me, and this is for me, that I wasn't happy with the sort of constant grind of feeling like I was getting up, optimizing for like these grades in a day and these assignments and these teachers. And I realized that kind of the rest of my life would be like that in a sense, like if I didn't try and go and do what I wanted to do and like really dive into my passions. And that's like when I really turned from like a writer who liked publishing and was publishing some of his work into an author, someone who wanted to like really make this like my career. And it took like really like my only time in my life when I felt like an anxiety attack because I was actually like, it was funny. I am pretty competitive and I wanted to like get really good grades in high school. And at one point I was taking tons of summer classes because I graduated a year early to try and like speed up how I was doing. It was really extra. And I was taking a Spanish class over the summer and I wasn't really passionate about like taking Spanish. Like Spanish is a great language, but I wasn't like a passion of mine. And I remember it was like midnight. The assignment was basically due any minute. And I had like was working a full-time job over the summer and doing these classes and was exhausted after the school year. And I just remember breaking down and being like, I'm not going to finish this. Like I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know why I'm doing this. And for the first time I had to be like, I think I need to totally change up what I'm doing in my life. And I think that like everyone who's like dove into publishing, dove into things like Kickstarter, dove into whatever you're doing, there's probably that moment where you're like, I need to change. I need to like your own hero's journey. You hit that own moment where you're like, this is my inciting incident. And it might not even be anything that like actually happens to you, but it's like a moment goes where you're like, I have to do this. And that was that moment for me. Like I remember it distinctly. And I remember telling my mom, like, I'm dropping these summer classes. I I want to be an author and I want to go for it today. And I that was kind of for me when I started to get really serious about it.
Hmm. Right, right. Yeah, it's. Are you now full time author? Oh wait, you're also a student, so you're still doing that. What is the likelihood these days to become like a full time author?
Well,
Any?
yeah, I'll just first say like I'm not a full-time author and I never made a full-time income as solely as an author. I made a full-time income as a live streamer after I did YouTube. So I would
Oh
live
yeah,
stream
yeah, I
for nine
remember that.
months.
Yeah.
And I was able to make a full-time living doing that for, I guess, roughly if you count in YouTube too. That was like a year journey of my life. So I know the feeling of being a full-time creator, but not from being an indie author. The most income that I'd ever made off of my books was about $1,200 to $1,300 a month. But a lot of that went back into advertising expenses. So I really never made that much profit off my books. I think if I had kept going down the publishing route, because I really got serious about publishing in like, let's call it summer of 2018. And by summer of 2020, I hit that like $1,000 a month consistent point. I think if I had kept at it for another 2 years, I would have been able to get somewhere with it. And one day I hope to do that. But I just, I was started college. I started YouTube. That started doing better. And I was really burnt out from the book a month. For me, I burned myself out. So then after I did YouTube for a year, that's when I got into technology startups. And that's now what I've been doing for the last like 2 years. So I've been kind of like out of the author world of like writing. And well, I've written actually two fiction novels in the last 2 years, but I haven't published them kind of deliberately because when I did YouTube for that year, which we can talk more about that journey. But when I stopped doing YouTube, I realized I wanted to go back and be a writer. And then when I wrote my next book and began to self publish it, I realized that all the things I learned in YouTube and live stream about the creator economy and the future of where this is going was really difficult to like do as an author. And I felt that there was something lacking, like a just that like the way that I wanted to be an author wasn't able to be realized. And that's when I started getting interested in like publishing technology startups and the whole scene of like who's trying to like make a better life for authors. And that's when I started connecting with a few startups. I was gonna join a few as a co-founder, and they were all based around CUNY, essentially for fiction authors, social reading, all kind of that same theme that I was going for. And then I met Amelia, and we met because she was the lead author of a serial fiction platform. And that same serial fiction platform had asked me to be their CEO. And I didn't want to do that after kind of meeting them and instead wanted to just work with Amelia. And we felt the same way. And she had kind of faced this problem where for her, she had a subscription, she made 6 figures a year, but there wasn't really a great platform for her to be able to actually run a subscription as an author and to be able to like have her readers read her stories with her, to have the posting and the scheduling of the chapters and the whole
Yeah.
reader experience be easy. And that's where Ream was born. Ream was born out of let's basically build the perfect platform for you. And for me, it was like if this if this is actually working for Amelia, and it is, and we can build something for her that's 10 times better than what's already working, then like hopefully that can do it for me too one day. But obviously for me, since I'm focusing really on the platform, that's kind of taken over my fiction publishing kind of section.
Yeah.
But hopefully when I'm out of college, I'll have some time to do both. We'll see.
Yeah. So I let me see. I've got the Ream homepage because I do have some questions about it, but this is basically the Ream homepage. It's well a bit Spartan, I guess, but not bad. So you've got a number of authors and their publications on there. Now, for me, as someone who has an account there, it took some effort to get it all running, but it should be running now. I hope. I have no subscribers, so I have no way to check. But um, my question is, like for me, I see a lot of six packs on there, but how do I get my books in that overview? Because there is there a way? Is there a search option for people?
Yeah, so you can search on Ream right now just by author. We'll be implementing searching by title and the coming months, and then eventually we'll have more discoverability options to be fully transparent on how that like basically cover image works. So as of May 7th, the homepage went live when we launched the platform. So exactly 30 days ago from recording. And we basically took a group of authors. Many of our early adopter authors were romance authors, but not all. So they were maybe like our biggest genre, but it's the biggest genre anyways, is romance. But we had thriller authors, sci-fi, fantasy, and we took authors who had paid subscribers, and we basically created a randomized list that every time you refresh the screen, it changes. We now haven't updated that screen, but we're planning to update it every month with new authors on Ream who at least have one paid subscriber and have some stories on Ream. So I think that's something that will continue to evolve, but obviously that homepage discovery option is going to be we're going to have more in the future for sure. It's just our beginning. And we figured for now it could be a way to reward people who, joined early and give them some recognition and also give the readers something, to be able to try out and look at when they first come to Ream.
Yeah. So yeah, you hear it, folks. If you want to help me, please get a subscriber for $3 a month on Ream. Currently, the Wrench in the Machine is on there.
I love that.
Yeah, knock yourself out. Let's see. Oh, I forgot to actually transition it, but yeah, you can actually search for my name. It's like a really small looking glass in the top of the screen that I missed before. But let's see. I think you might be able to find me on Bonsert. Let's see if that works. My name. Yep, there it is, and there is my page. So. I managed to get yeah, the Wrench in the Machine is down there. I might put on the other books as well. Maybe also start including the other short stories. I did notice today that when I went over the Wrench in the Machine that the images were missing. So you have to upload those manually. Is that intentional, or is that something you're still working on?
When you're talking about images, are you talking about images inside of the story?
Yes, images that were inside of the Word file in this case, or the dot.
Right now, the Ream e-reader doesn't support images, but we will be supporting that soon. We do have images in the community post section. So if you can put images in the community post section, you can't embed images in your story at the moment. It just the e-reader doesn't support it, but that will be changing soon. We'll definitely be allowing that probably in the next couple months as well, where you can have an image inside of your story, and of course you can post images in your community as well.
Yeah. Well, you say that because I did manage to put them in manually, the images.
I, you, what I would maybe does it view in the reader?
Well, I'm very
I would
curious to that now
because
myself, but
we've
they
had
did
some
not appear. Like it did mention, like, oh, there's supposed to be a file here, and then I uploaded them again manually through copy paste, and then they appeared at least on the back end. So, yeah. Let me see. Can I look at my? Let me see. Can I look at it? Let me see. And so
I think my advice would be for others listening that because we haven't fully built that out yet, if you are able to find a workaround to get images to show on Ream inside of your story, that's beautiful. But I wouldn't. We've had issues where we've tested this, and sometimes the images haven't shown up, and that's because like we're working on building that out. So just you can hack you can find your own workaround, that's fine, but like I wouldn't expect it to be
right.
foolproof. But if you put an image inside of a community post, that'll always show up. That always
Yeah,
works.
yeah,
We
yeah.
built that.
Oh, I see at least one image. So maybe they already fixed it. Who knows? Well, to be continued, I suppose. But that was something that I noticed today, so I was curious about that.
Yeah.
All right. What else do you want to mention about Ream? What are the big benefits to those who support creators on Ream?
So for a reader on Ream, I would say there's three key benefits. The first one is that if you love like supporting and like actually like getting stories, bonus content, whatever it might be from your favorite author, the experience is much easier on Ream when it comes to payments, when it comes to actually reading stories, compared to other kind of creator platforms that you can directly support someone on. So if you use a subscription platform, like for instance, Patreon, I know probably everyone knows what that is. It's not really optimized for reading. So it's not a great reader experience. So the first thing is just that Ream makes your life easier and better as a reader to be able to support your favorite creators. Another one is that when you're on Ream that you are directly supporting your creator. So Ream, we're a software that facilitates everything, but they get your ability to be able to receive the vast majority of the revenue, a very, very high revenue share compared to other platforms. Authors are able to control their benefits, control what they're offering. So that enables them to be more creative about what they give you. So they can be able to give you extra content. They can give you early access to different books and kind of give you like that VIP reader experience. And the third thing is just knowing that your support on Ream, when you support an author, it goes directly to them. They are able to directly contact you. They have your email. So they can give you a more personalized experience. And as a result, you get to be a part of truly supporting the storytellers you love. And that can like change their life. So those are like the three big things. It's a better experience. Authors oftentimes offer really cool benefits on Ream that we make possible. And the third thing is that your support goes directly to them and you can help really change their lives with that support.
Mm-hmm. Can we expect things like a Discord integration or and similar apps?
So that's something that we would definitely explore in the future. I think over the next couple months, we're looking to build out how the CUNY works within Ream for like following, so that you can follow someone on Ream for free and get updates, push notifications in our app, or something we're going to be implementing. But once we kind of get through that, we're very open to integrations and want to support creators wherever they have their community. So we would love to explore that. But like at the moment, if you did want to like use Discord, you would just have to email someone like an invite link to a private server, which we give you their emails. It's not like it's not like totally integrated in where like, oh, okay, we can link up and verify payment information to get them into a exclusive Discord server. We don't have that integration built out.
Mm-hmm. All right. What is the big wish? Like, has your wish been fulfilled with the how with Ream how it currently is, or is there like, oh no, this is what I really want there to be in the future?
I mean, I think it's like any author, like when you write book one, like you can love book one, but you still have a lot left in you. You know what I mean? The series still has to keep going. So I think like we're building a world for storytellers, and that's where our motto is storytellers for the world. And I would say like we're very happy with our book one, with how things are going so far, and we're a year into building Ream. Um, but we're far from done. So I think we have a lot more that we want to do. I'd say our focus for the next year is just on subscriptions and making our existing experience like just 10x better. We already have a really awesome experience, but we want it to be just like lights out, like amazing, having all the bells and whistles that authors need, having all the things that make a reader experience like super easy and super fun. So that's our like high priority for next year. So I think on that front, like there's obviously a lot of things I want to see, added to Ream, like audiobooks, right? I want to see the ability for readers to be able to follow other authors on Ream so that authors can build out more of a sales funnel on the platform. So these are all like near-term things. But in the long run, I think our vision, right? So, and this is not something in the next year. Our focus is just on subscriptions the next year. But our vision, let's say over 5 or 10 years, is to be the CUNY platform for fiction. So how can we help readers discover new CUNYs of other readers, discover CUNYs that might be led by authors, and authors and readers as well can build their own CUNYs on the platform. So I see us much more like a social reading platform, really. And I would love to be able to help reading creators, so people on TikTok and YouTube, love to be able to help them set up their own bookstores and really kind of like empower the independent creator so that we're less of a platform, but more a tool to be able to build your own platform as an author, a tool to be able to build your own platform as a CUNY leader as a book club owner, as a reading creator. And I think that that ecosystem is just very different than the ecosystem that exists currently in publishing. And we have a lot of work to do to like enable that, to power discovery in that, and to like truly make these new business models possible. So that's like our grand vision, if any, you know. And I think we're excited for it. And subscriptions are a great thing for us to be able to start in and to be able to like really help authors build a community of their super fans. That's our core focus right now.
All right, all right. So, do you have anything else you want to tell about Ream before we go into your fiction?
I mean, if anyone has any questions, you can always reach out to us in support and the help guides. We're a small team, just like indie authors. We're bootstrapped, and there's three of us working on it. So that makes us very responsive to our authors. I think collectively between me and Amelia, we've been authors for about a decade, and published over 40 books between us. And she also does just she's a tremendous author. She very successful in subscriptions. So
Mm-hmm.
we have a lot of insight there and are always looking for people's feedback. And especially if you're a reader listening to this and you go to Ream, I would love to hear about what you see on other reading platforms that you would love to see and a place that could be better for you. We want to build this for you. So any feedback you have is welcome. And yeah, I mean, honestly, we're going to be around for a while. So
Yeah.
whether people want to check it or not out or not, we're excited to keep making better every day. And at some point, I'm confident that for readers who check it out, you might not have all your favorite authors on there today, but they will be there soon because every month we have tons of incredible authors like you joining.
All right. Well, I guess what I would like to see, one of the big problems, and I'm not the only one who has this, is that you have to spread your attention over various social media platforms. So what I would like to see is maybe like an Instagram gallery ability. So when I post images to Instagram, because that's the only platform where I actually get some views. So that's also posted to that particular Instagram gallery. World Anvil has a similar integration for Twitter, for instance. So maybe something like that.
I definitely think that vision is kind of on the money with where we're looking to go with things to be able to house all of an author's social activities so that you still use other platforms, of course, like to discover fans, be a funnel into like kind of your home, but where you could be able to like have a gallery of images, have your audiobooks, right? Have all the different content that a storyteller creates inside of Reams that you as an author are able to have a place where you can connect directly with your fans and publish the things that they love super easily. But that's a great idea with the gallery. I like it a lot.
Yeah, thank you. Well, and I guess my last question is more, um, like how I mean, I already have like the YouTube platform, of course, and I'm telling people now that I have a Ream page. How do you suggest people go about promoting the Ream platform? I've got stuff on there because there's already so many places where people post. I mean, so many people already post on places like Substack and all these places, and you kind of like feel the peer pressure. Oh, I should also do stuff on Substack, and God knows what other alternatives like Patreon there are. Um, so how do I convince people who, for example, support me on Patreon right now? There are not many of them, but there's some, to go to Ream.
Yeah, well, I think there's a lot of different things there. So if you're already using like an existing subscription platform where fans are supporting you, the first question to ask yourself is like, do you want to start a Ream and migrate your audience just to Ream, or do you want to have multiple subscription platforms? Either is allowed. If you want to have multiple subscription platforms, then you could give your fans the option. You can make a post, inside of your subscription that says, "Hey, like, if you want to join, there's this new platform that's built specifically for readers. It'll be a better experience for you, and easier to read. You can comment inside of the chapters. You have an actual ebook, all these sorts of things, and they could join if they want. But a lot of authors also choose to migrate platforms because in subscriptions, and this is what will be the second part of this, it's hard to like actually get discovery of your subscription on a subscription platform itself. Like the subscription itself, like on a platform like Patreon, isn't getting new fans finding it. So being on multiple subscription platforms oftentimes isn't an advantage. It just takes more time away and confuses fans because they don't know which community to be a part of. It's like, would you have two Discords or a Discord and a Facebook group? You can, but it can be confusing for some. So a lot of authors choose just one, and then they would kind of tell their fans, like, we're going to shut down this one, we're going to close off new signups, and we're going to move here. But actually, how to find new fans, which is the question that'll be useful to almost everyone listening. The biggest thing is to view subscriptions as like the very bottom of your funnel. And that is true for anything where like a fan is directly supporting you, right? It's a big ask to have someone pay it per month. It's a big ask if you're doing Kickstarter to have someone spend $100 a month on a tier
Mm-hmm.
and or $100, sorry, in one campaign for a tier or $100 a month, right? All these things. So what you want to be able to do is have some sort of way that you can build trust with your fans and move them further down the fan or the reader journey. And how you do that doesn't look too much different than how you already get discovery today. So like lean in. If you're doing serial fiction, you can write in a serial fiction platform. You can lean into a social media platform. You could have a great YouTube channel like this. Whatever it is that you want to do, have some sort of way where you can create content or publish your stories and reach readers through some sort of form of, whether it's algorithmic discovery, whether it's going on podcasts, getting book reviewers to talk about you, some sort of way to ultimately get people to see that you exist.
Mm-hmm.
And then the goal would be to bring them to your mailing list or have a call to action that brings them to your subscription. And then many people will choose just to join your mailing list. And then you could have an automation sequence in your mailing list that sends them to your subscription. Then what you could also do is make posts on social media about your subscription that says things like, oh, like my new book's coming out in 3 months, but if you want to get it right now, today, you'll get early access inside my subscription. I built this really cool world building map, or I did this exclusive video on, how the Apple Provision will change, cybernetics or whatever you want to create the video on. And then that goes inside the subscription. And you are then sharing that with your fans on the platform that they already watch you. Like, hey, you like my YouTube videos, you like my books, you might want this exclusive video. Or, hey, you like my YouTube videos, you like my books, you might want to just support me. You don't have to offer them anything. And that would be like the call to action. But I guess the key is that you're really providing value up front, right? You're giving them a chapter on a serial fiction platform and then asking them if they want more. You're giving them a great video and then asking them, do you want more? And I guess the key is to provide value up front, because if you're just like posting on a platform that you've never been on, like, here's my subscription link, please join, it's going to be hard to get people to actually be interested in that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think it's valuable to mention that you can the community posts on Ream. You can like assign them to certain tiers, so you can share like restricted content that way with your audience there. I mean, for those who are familiar with platforms like Patreon, they already have things like that. So it's not that original, but still, it's a valuable thing to know when you are considering this. So yeah, I think that those were my questions for Reem. So I guess we can talk a little bit about fiction for a moment. And
Yeah.
of course, if you want to bring up your own favorite topics, well, what is your favorite topic at the moment?
At the moment, I'm most interested in, and I think this is something that um, uh, uh, probably other people share as well, but I'm very interested in like this this sort of concept of, the AI storytelling machine, and
Right. Yeah.
uh, AI as a storyteller. So I've played around with a couple ideas in there, and am thinking about writing a book called like Neon Dreams that'll be kind of part autobiography, which it won't actually be framed as autobiography, but it'll be like Jack Kerouac's The Road for like the cyber generation. That for me is like the most interesting creative idea for me that I've been really reflecting on and writing some drafts in. But overall, I'm most intrigued by technology becoming religion and technology becoming a
Yeah.
new form of religion. And I think it's both troublesome but also an interesting observation that, as we see traditional religions decline, we see much more like cult-like worshiping of not only technology leaders, but technology itself, like as technology as a solution to our happiness, technology is a solution to anything.
Mhm.
I mean, there's so many examples of this, like, how do you cure X, how do I cure loneliness? How do I cure anxiety?
Oh yeah.
Like, swipe on this app or take this pill, and that's all you'll need. When in
Have
reality,
you
like,
sorry for interrupting, but have you read The Machine Stops? Night.
oh, by E.R. Forrester, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
that
that's
is
very good.
so. That is probably one of the most prophetic stories I've ever read.
It it's crazy because it was written a very long time ago, and it's basically like so close to the world we're living in today. It's almost
Yeah.
scary.
It's like it predicted social media. It's also fun that it also has like the elements of the Jetsons in there.
Yes.
It's so, but it predicted social media, it predicted the internet, but also predicted like how people interact with the information. That I know people that are just living in a kind of like augmented reality that does not hold up to scrutiny, and that's also what our people are affected by in the machine stops. Um, and I'm also very intrigued by this idea that the technology becomes so complex, but the people so complacent that the technology just breaks down because nobody understands this. And I think we're already seeing that happening in some places. It's yeah, I find it a very intriguing story. You could do an entire podcast just talking about the machine stops and what it predicted, and oh man.
It is an incredible book. I actually read it like 6 months ago. So it was like a recent read for me. So like everything's especially true. Um, it it's definitely like something that with actually the launch like yesterday, I think it was yesterday, of the Apple Pro Vision that like got me really like thinking about this, like, this complex machine that, is now in our eyes and that can simulate the world. And now we're going to be looking through the glass at all times. It is, yeah, it's really different. It makes me think that um the power that even governments use, like, who controls reality is a really important question, thinking to
Yeah.
like 1984. And like when your reality through all waking hours can be viewed and augmented by a specific screen, is Apple like more powerful than any global government at that point because it has more of a control over people's perception of reality than any,
You
any
have.
sovereign nation.
Are you a gamer, or do you play video games?
Not as much anymore, but I used to a lot.
Are you familiar with the Syndicate series?
I am.
Yes, that's exactly. People were literally living in a world where they watched through the eyes of an augmented reality, and everything looked idyllic according to them. But once that system broke down, it was this cyberpunk dystopia.
I mean, in many ways, like we're kind of like kind of living in a world like that today where, you know, the average like wage, inflation adjusted wages in the Western developed world and definitely a country like America haven't really gone up that much since the 1970s.
Yeah.
And so we've seen like our quality of life materially deteriorate. We've seen healthcare costs and education costs essential to living a great life um, go up leaps and bounds above inflation. So people are spending more to stay healthy and they're spending more to try and, develop an education and be able to go into the workforce than ever before for a slice of the wage pie that is not really barely keeping up with inflation. That to me, it's almost like what has then changed in the last this time. It's like, oh well, in that same period of time, we now spend, most of our waking hours now in on our cell phones or on the internet. It's up to 8 hours a day now. The average person spends online. That has been everything around us can deteriorate. Our health can deteriorate, but we'll be glued to the screens and all be okay. And I'm saying this as someone who loves the internet, right? Like I love the internet, but as
Hmm.
a writer, I can't help but point to the parts of all of it that
Yeah.
are uncomfortable because that's where the story is.
I can't help just promoting the book because
Yes,
it talks so much about these topics. Yeah.
their topics. I mean, this is where like science fiction, cyberpunk, steampunk, all these things, right? Like they're the genres like of this century. Like this is the stories that we're living in. So it's like science fiction isn't every story is becoming science fiction. Every story is becoming a technology thriller type of thing. And that's the world we're living in. Even like another thing I'm super interested in is like cli-fi or climate change fiction, right? Um,
Mm.
that my recent book that I wrote that's unpublished at the moment is all about that. It's about like what if carbon becomes a currency and we limit someone's amount of carbon, and when they reach that limit, they die. So basically, gamifying
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
carbon. That was my idea, like a universal basic carbon income, and um, I find that fascinating because we're all living in a world now too where like these far out climate change problems are totally a part of everyone's life now. Like it's unavoidable wherever side of the aisle you're on. The weather's changing in a big way, our
Mm.
environment changing in a big way, and whatever role you think humans play in it, we do have to figure out a way that it doesn't destroy the ecosystems we depend on. That's a big thing that to me like the setting of it's the setting of the next great American novel, and the next one and the next one.
Yeah.
These sorts of worlds.
It's interesting. In regards to America deteriorating. I mean, what also happened there, of course, is that America was the first. Like England
Yeah.
was the first in many things, so it was the first to deteriorate. And then America became this big thing. Now that's deteriorating. Now China. Well, I mean, China is already crumbling like within months. Yeah,
It's a
it's
different story.
incredible to hear how it goes there. So it's a.
Yeah.
I mean, China is a different story, but I mean, it's interesting to see what India is gonna do. You know, are they gonna be the next? Are they gonna have like the next New York? You know, the next Art Deco style? Are people gonna copy like the Indian architecture worldwide? Well, I mean, the Americans actually copied the German architectural style. Actually, it's quite funny how that worked, but when you think about it, the Germans basically, after losing the Second World War, conquered America through architecture. It's yeah.
That's I would be very curious to read up on that. That sounds fascinating.
I made a video on that on Art Deco, and most of those architects and Streamline Modern and all that, those are mostly all German schools or Germans themselves. Many also German refugees as well, like Jews. Also played a big hand in that architectural revolution as well. But yeah, it's I was reading that. It's like, all those guys are German.
Wow.
So it's funny how that works. But like there's this cliche like that history is written by the winner. But I'm a student of history, and lately I've really come to the conclusion, no, not really. It's the survivors wrote it. You are probably familiar with the good Wehrmacht myth. Like, oh, it was only the SS who did all the terrible things, but the Wehrmacht, they were just normal soldiers. They didn't do anything wrong. Those types of stories, and of course Rommel. You're probably familiar with that name, General Rommel. You know.
Oh, I feel like I should know it.
Okay. Well, he's also a clear symptom of that, of somebody who got to write his own legacy. And our legacy of him is now completely influenced by what he made himself. And we
Mm.
see that with a lot of German generals, like, oh, the Russians had such great tanks. And then you learn, no, actually, those tanks were crap. They just wanted an excuse to why they lost.
Oh, that's fascinating. I mean, that puts into question so many different things because that there so I study history of science. That's like the what I study. And um there's this concept that a lot of times professors will talk about, like Whiggish history, which is basically like the the history being written by the winners. But it's interesting because a lot of times the narrative is that um and I think and there's a degree of truth to this narrative, so I'm not underscoring it, but I think it's interesting to see the counter, which is we always like to think that there's these the losers don't get to write history.
Mm-hmm.
um when they actually have they get to write a whole other history of themselves, and sometimes it can be broadly accepted and sometimes it might not. And it's super interesting to me to see that the German architecture making it to the United States. That's super interesting to me. Another interesting thing is like now, like if thinking about World War II, Japanese culture, I mean, sushi, all the things have been exported to America, in the Western world based off of, you know, they did lose in World War II in a literal sense, and obviously there was the horrific bombing that happened. But what you then see is that their culture is able to be transported across the world, just as in certain ways, like baseball is now like a huge sport there. But then what's even funnier now is like flash forward 80 years, and like in something like baseball, the American pastime, you have Japan totally taking over things like the World Baseball Classic and making it their own. So it's very interesting to see how it's never as simple as like
Mm-hmm.
winners and losers.
Oh yeah. Oh, you want a black pill? Go read the book Blacklisted by History about Joseph McCarthy.
Hmm. Oh, that must be an interesting one.
That was a very revealing book to me because of the explanation of why is McCarthy that vilified. And when you read his explanation for that, you're like, oh, oh. And then that becomes really, really dark. And that's also what I mean with histories written by the survivors. And especially also what I mentioned about, the German generals saying, oh, we were just, they were technologically superior to us. There a lot of history is people passing on the blame. And in this case, they found a scapegoat in McCarthy.
Hmm.
And yeah, that was very revealing to me. And yeah, once you think about history that way, yeah, it's mm.
History for me is my biggest influence whenever I write.
Oh, for me too. Yeah,
I try and merge, even though I'm interested in thinking about the future, it's always like inflected by what comes from the past. And I think the the most interesting questions to me are often following the uncertainty. Like the uncertainty of where things are going is what makes the future exciting to me. But to know what to write about, it's so important to see where things have come from. But the mystery in that is that we don't even really know our past.
No, we don't.
No,
It's
we'll never really know the truth.
no. Yeah, well, I'm very passionate about the West Africa Squadron. Have you heard of them?
The U.S. Africa Squadron. Tell me about it.
They they weren't that important. They just ended the transatlantic slave trade.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and they've got one monument in Sierra Leone. That's it. That's well, there was a couple of years ago they had a. I mean, I do notice there is now an increasing interest in the history of the West Africa Squadron, but they fought a 60-year war against the transatlantic slave trade.
Ah,
Yeah, and
ah.
to make it even worse, the British taxpayer paid for that war up to 2015.
Really?
Yes,
Like the debt from that,
yes,
or
from that war.
wow.
That was their big crusade. Um, and it's a very interesting story into itself because they go there because Britain banned the slave trade in early in the 19th century, They go to and then they have to enforce it for the rest of their commonwealth. So they sent out like 2 ships to West Africa to basically start what's the word again? Barricading the West African coast. And of course they start out with these big ships, and then they figure out, oh, we are too slow, so they they take slaver ships which are smaller and leaner, and then they use those to go after other slave traders, and just for 60 years, and then they just start, okay, we had enough, and then they start like actually declaring war on African kingdoms who sell the slaves.
Wow.
Because because they otherwise it didn't work. So it's a whole history that's completely forgotten. Nobody knows about it. I remember asking about it on my university, like, why was the slave trade ended? And it said, oh, it's just because of the American Civil War. That was a professor who told me that. Oh no, it's because of the American Civil War, and then it just petered out.
Hmm.
Yeah. It's
Wow.
it's crazy how ignorant we are.
Yeah, that's a big story to get swept under the
Yeah,
rug.
yeah. Again, wrench in the machine. It gets referenced. Yeah,
Yeah.
I actually want to like tribute them in future books, that they continue the West Africa squadron. Only now they're hunting monsters, something like that. Uh,
That would be very interesting. That would
yeah.
be very interesting.
So we'll see. And yeah, it's hard to actually find information on it. It's a shame. I tried looking like, okay, what are their uniforms? Couldn't find it. I have to like actually delve into the literature and hope that I encounter something about that. It's
Wow.
yeah. And I talked about it on another stream, and it got them. Well, it didn't get demonetized, but I got like a yellow sign behind the video.
Really?
Yes, yes. I wouldn't be surprised now if this also gets like, this is not suitable for all advertisers. It's insane.
That is crazy.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
they picked up on you saying that, and then
yeah,
wow,
yeah.
wow.
It's insane. So
That's shocking to me. I mean,
yeah.
that's just
I won't say who it was, but I actually had a wonderful interview with wonderful people. This is not a slight against them, but they contacted me. I talked with them about this as well, and they contacted me afterward, and they told me that, can you please remove it, because we don't want to get in trouble.
wow.
I
I
yes.
I had no idea about this topic at all. I mean, I'm enlightened. I definitely want to read about it more because it seems like such a such an interesting story that um I definitely want to learn more about.
Oh yeah, there's definitely videos on it you can find on YouTube, who talk about it more in great detail. So they also cite sources, so you can then check out those sources for yourself. That's how I would go about it. And there's also an audio book that talks about it, which is I found, because in my book I also talk about Liberia, which is a former American colony in Africa, and I could not find anything about it. All I could find about, and this is one of those truisms in the historical writings, where they would say, "Oh yeah, there was this black colony that was supposed to be like, all black people free, wonderful." Um, but in the end, they had all even more slaves there than in America, and they were treated even worse. But it was like, okay, but what did they do then? I could not find any information about that anywhere. It was just the same line being repeated. Yes, the slaves were treated worse there. They just copy pasted that line in all the books. Talked about the politics about it. Finally, I
Wow.
found a book. Yes, I finally found a book about it. It's called Mississippi in Africa. It's a place there. It's literally called Mississippi in Africa. And you gotta imagine, like in the 19th century, it was like a copy paste of Virginia.
Yeah.
it,
Oh yeah.
it's if you look at at photos, it's really painful to see, because it's almost like a black exploitation film, you know uh, it's yeah, but yeah, Mississippi in Africa. It's the only book that I found that's actually about it. Also explains like why is there so little history about it, and well, it's one of the poorest countries in the world right now, so you kind of can imagine what happened over there. But it's yeah, it's worth a listen, and how it influenced the history overall of that country, not just like chronologically, but also how history is written. So
Yeah, no, that's that's super interesting. It definitely makes me think a lot about this Johnny Harris video on YouTube, which he's always interesting with his takes on history. And he was sharing about this kind of like the line between like fiction and reality getting blurred, where
mm-hmm.
California, why it was named, and kind of why it's always this place of like the end of the frontier of sorts, is because in this famous Spanish novel in the 1500s, there was a place called California written in the book that was basically a land of like beautiful women, and only women lived there. That
Oh,
was the
okay.
novel. So a bunch of the Spaniard sailors were like, "We got to find California." They wanted to find it, and they thought they found it when they went to the Baja Peninsula, uh, which is Baja California. They thought it was California. They thought it was the California, but then very quickly realized that it isn't. But there was one determined, and then they kind of like, you know, that story kind of died off. But throughout all of it, right, California was supposed to be an island.
Mm.
This is where the Dutch come in. They um, obviously were the map makers of the world, but there was this one guy on a ship who was off the coast of California who really believed the story that California really was this island of and was this mystical place. And it was an island, which means that when they were sailing through San Francisco and up and down and really mapping out California, this guy just decided to make a river go around California and make the whole thing an island. And that became the accepted map of California for a century and a half. It didn't get rewritten until like the 1700s and become widely accepted that no, California is not an island. And that was like literally a fictional story, blurring reality and making our perception of reality that piece of fiction, which obviously, like, in the end, California is not an island, and that's gotten written out. But like the very name of it is a delusion. Like it's based off a delusion. And then to this day, California is the place that people go to with these feverish technological dreams. It's the home of like, cyberpunk and things like that. And it's no wonder that that fiction lives on.
It's funny. Yeah, I need to invest myself more in the history of the Apache and the Comanche in that area, because I found it is actually very interesting. Also, I like how the Comanche became powerful, and how the Apache managed to keep the Spanish at a distance. Um, so yeah, I'm definitely looking into more of that. It's also something that I want to experiment with in my universe as well. That there is this going to be this um, autonomous region of Native American tribes. I don't know which ones yet. I have to read into it more, but that's something that I want to explore. Where there's going to be. Are you familiar with the Association of Ishtar setting? I don't know.
Not too familiar.
Okay, oh, that's my series. So the
Okay.
idea is that it's an alternative version of Earth, where there are all these portals opening up to other worlds. However, they're two
I love it.
way. So yes, you can go to the portal and explore the alternate version of Earth that's behind it, but there's also it's also possible that all kinds of monsters from other worlds enter through that as well.
That's
And
cool.
yeah, so the Association of Ishtar is kind of like took it upon themselves to contain these rifts, and find solution how to deal with these problems. So it's not so much even about the other worlds, it's also like how Earth is dealing with that issue, and how technology is spreading in that world because of them, because they also find futuristic worlds, and lost technologies and all that stuff. So there's also that problem.
I
Um,
love it.
and I'm thinking like, okay, well, maybe there's like a situation where there's an Indian territory that the United States wants to annex, but then this rift appears. It's a big whatever problem that comes out of it needs to be contained somehow, and they have to make a cut of deal with the Native Americans there, with lucrative benefits, so they can also develop. And the American government is kind of forced to stay out. Of course, a lot of them have the idea, oh, well, that problem will explode and the Native Americans will be exterminated by that problem or something like that. But I don't know yet. That's something that I've yet to explore. But I'm thinking about a scenario like that.
I I would love to read that story. I think
Yeah.
that'd be a lot of very,
Well,
very interesting.
people can submit their own. We have submission rules for how people can submit their own ideas for this universe. Especially now we're also starting developing our role playing game.
That'll be
So
awesome.
yeah, so people are free to insert like their own ideas and stuff. It's still all a work in progress, but we've got one submission that people really like by a friend of mine.
That's
Very
awesome.
Robert E. Howard, if you were a admirer of him in style. But yeah,
Wow. I love the idea. Role-playing games with your university would be so much fun. I mean, that would be awesome. I'm a big fan of. I've played a few RPGs there. It's a lot of fun to get like a just a group of people together and be able to tell a story like that in a world together.
yeah.
So much fun.
Well, I kind of like this was more part of a 5 year plan, like 5 years, and we can start developing something. But I had a friend who now has his own role playing company in New York, but I also have contacts in Los Angeles. Um, and the original stories that I wrote, all my novels are based on these short stories, and I now have two anthologies, and basically they're all written as in-universe files. So you can actually give this to a player, like here's a short story, but it's also an in-universe document. So they serve two purposes. Uh,
So
and
cool.
I finally found a way to. I don't know if I can upload these in this format to Ream, but that would be ideal if I could just upload PDFs and have this. Is that something that you're considering for Ream, that people can upload PDFs like for comics and stuff?
Yes, that'll be something that we're thinking of, certainly in the next year that we want to add to the platform. Um, we love comics and also just more visual stories and that yes, that would be really cool.
Okay, awesome. I'm looking forward to that because I include a lot of artwork in my stuff. Um,
It's great. It makes how are the printing costs for you? Are they
well, let's see. I mean, full color like this. That's I think this one currently with the current prices, the price on Amazon are rising. I think this one was $650, something like that. I think it was over $6 to print.
okay?
These ones are cheaper, even though they have illustrations. These are grayscale, you know.
Yep, that'll
So
do it.
they are cheaper to make than that. Of course, but that is made with help of the community. It also has sketches that, like these have original art. These books, however, these have like sketches and concept art that I cannot use for anything else. But because they're dossiers, it's like they're scribbles by the people who wrote the dossiers.
Oh,
So
that's
it's
cool.
also a great way for me. I don't know, and it also I can also do like okay, I don't know if this is visible on the camera, but here you see like a sketch of one
Oh,
drawing.
wow. That
Yeah,
came out that came out pretty good. Like that's good. Like
yeah.
KDP printing.
I made it with
That's good.
InDesign. This is made by a volunteer. This is I did not pay for this commission.
Beautiful. That's beautiful.
And it's fun because it allows people to play with the character designs as well of in this case one of the main characters. That's a fluke, by the way. I never intended to be a main character. I just wrote her for a short story, and now she is the main character of the series. Um, but
So
yeah,
that's the best thing when it's organic. That character demands to become a bigger part of your story.
yeah, yeah. Exactly.
Uh,
We didn't particularly. Well, we talked about history and stuff, so I guess we kind of stayed on topic. But uh, after that diversion, you were talking about technology. Is there something you want to keep talking about, or? I don't know how you are with your time today.
Probably have about another 10 minutes.
Okay.
So yeah, no, I mean, I think history and the future are always super um they're always interconnected. I mean, I'd be curious for you, what are you thinking in terms of like writing? What inspires you? What in the world today or in the past um makes you question and gets you curious?
Like you, history. Like I'm a high concept writer, so yeah, and right now I'm really thinking about the world. Like I already gave you the description of the world with the rifts and stuff, and I'm trying to look for like interesting historical events or people or like the West Africa Squadron and the history of Liberia, and for the wrench in the machine, I really went inside this rabbit hole to figure out the history of the British police and how they operated, how that developed, and how that would look like in this world. Right now, I'm writing the Casket Girls, which is they have these robots that are developed with this off-world technology, so to speak, and they are allowed to use that technology because they're fighting like big alien threats. But they're also penal troops, which was inspired by the history of Devil Island, which is this old French colony in South America. And there was also a famous political case that happened there, which was about the prosecution of an innocent Jewish officer who was sent there.
Wow.
So there was, so I'm gonna make a reference to him as well at some point. Um, yeah, I play a lot with that. Like, how can a penal legion function? And what kind of characters can you grow out of that? And one of the big challenges I have with it is like these people are criminals. They're not good people. Um, so you have to keep them sympathetic, but you also gotta make the public aware these are not like Aladdins who stole bread because they were hungry. Some of them are genuine sociopaths. Um, so
Yeah.
that's it's a challenge. Like I'm finishing the first draft. I hope to have it done by next week. Please let me have it done by next week.
Oh, that'd be great.
But like another manuscript that I already finished, which is Enwin, Adventures in Responsible Doll Ownership, and that is a story about the main character Igraine, who's the main character in my new book, Bound for the Styx, as a doll. And that doll is her connection to our world. She's from another world, you see. So she talks her in her own language with that doll and stuff like that. But she's growing up now. She's a woman. So how do are you gonna let a doll run around with a doll all the time? So I experimented with okay, what happens if that doll comes alive? You know,
Yeah.
and people love that so much. I wrote a simple story, a few hundred words. It's on my blog, and people loved it so much. And now we have like all these images of Enwin drawing, doing other silly things. My main illustrator's now making one that he stole the hand of the cyborg hand of one character. Uh,
That'll look cool.
yeah,
That's
so it's mostly for fun.
right. Yeah.
But yeah, so now she has like the main character is like this kind of like toddler slash pet. It's a little robot now. It's possessed by a robot. That's so I had to find all these reasons for it, but it's coming together, and now she's kind of like a double agent. But that's not known to the characters, just to the readers at this point. And a new villain also came out of it, which is gonna play an important role in the future that I
Did
call
you just spoil your book?
not really, not really. I mean, it's very clear
Uh,
from the very
okay.
start that
Okay.
there are things going on.
Okay.
Um,
Okay. I was like, I'm sorry for whoever's listening if that was a little spoiler, but okay, good.
no, it's I actually already wrote a little story about him on the blog. Just to see how people like it. A little philosophical track. I'm also a big fan of Deadwood. So Are you familiar with that show?
I've heard of it. I've not watched it. It's on my list.
It's amazing. But there are also these moments that almost every character has like these very introvert moments where they start talking with themselves. Like one is always talking to a severed head of an Apache that was once killed, and he has his head in a box, and he has whole philosophical, semi-reflective conversations with him. And then it's all those moments, and the puppet master then has like a conversation with one of his creations, which is also a doll. Um, so it's really
I love
silly,
it.
but I love it, and it's that he's a very dangerous villain, but he's not necessarily a bad guy. And he's not always he has he cares, but his creations do not. So he has these conversations with them, but they're just machines. They're like insects or pets, like cats. That's probably the best thing. They're like cats, so they're always obsessed with their own little object that they have in their hands at that time while he's talking to them, and yeah, that's what I want to experiment with in the future.
I think that sounds fascinating. And I'm it is interesting because when you were talking about the machines kind of being like cats not having that like almost like the self-absorption. I am curious, like with where machines are going, if we do think machines could become like conscious in a sense. There's this great short story by Ted Chiang in one of his short story collections about AI, and that the great like downfall or the great like injustice of AI won't be like AI enslaving humans, but will be that we create like another version of a cow or another version of a chicken that basically is this life form that really's only purpose is to serve us. Um, and I thought it was a really interesting take because it's not saying like AI will take over the world. It's totally different, but it's saying that it's like this form of life. It's this being that we've like subjugated to this sort of, not a free existence.
Oh, there was one story idea. I have not read it yet. I think I participate in an anthology called the Styxian collection, and there is one short story in there in which a AI makes a Faustian bargain with the devil.
Wow.
Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah.
It
So
makes the bargain
what does an
itself.
AI what does an AI want from the devil? That's what I'm curious about. So but yeah,
Yeah.
that's gonna be like are AI machines going to have like desires? That's
Yeah.
that's one of the big questions. Like, are they gonna become curious? Are we gonna have not just Florida man but Florida robot? Um, Bender, basically. Um, I, I don't think it's gonna get that far. But there's gonna be a lot of considerations. Like today, I listened to somebody how governments might want to use AI to scrub the internet of things they don't like. Um, that is that is a concern. Um, Especially how algorithms work now,
Yeah.
and that is stuff like that. That's the thing that make me very nervous. Um, like AI is producing crap. Well, there's already a lot of crap, as somebody already stated. Deep fakes. Well, we already had that problem kind of with Photoshop. You know, so yeah, I think. Uh, I kind of hope that legislation really puts some serious limits on it in time. And that's kind of like the problem of legislation. It reacts. It does not really act proactively, which is also good. But um,
Yeah.
that's one of those.
When things move really fast, it's challenging.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and that's also one of the themes of my books. You know, things are moving so fast. A matter of fact, I hope to finish a short story today. That's there's this organization called and then we'll call it quits. I think. But that is kind of like a regulatory organization that works internationally, but that means that an international organization that's maybe located in a country you don't like very much is going into your home asking like, "Yo, can we check your administration?" Um,
Mm.
and then he explains it. Well, which is also very fitting for the Industrial Revolution. Like, imagine being born in, let's say, 70, 75. Everything is agricultural, and then you're 75, 1850, and everything is industrial, and the majority of the population now lives in cities.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a huge change in one
You
lifetime.
know, yeah, and then also with the technological advances, is that gonna go worldwide? Well, not in the 19th century. It's gonna be limited to some very limited spaces that happen to
Right.
have the money to build all the infrastructure. Infrastructure is also a very important topic, or at least in my setting. Like how does things spread? Like, oh yeah, we have cars now. Okay, well, would be nice if we had roads to drive on.
Right. Yeah. And then if you have roads, you have to have, which this came after the roads and the cars in many instances, but some sort of traffic control to
Yeah,
ensure. And then you also need, on top of that, the like human infrastructure of people in place to be able to repair the roads, but also
yeah,
police the roads. I mean, I feel like half of what cops do in America, I think cops, they do a lot of good stuff. Police do a lot of good things,
we have
obviously,
to
but a
clarify that
lot.
now. Yeah,
But right now, I'm being, I want to make sure I say that because it's true. But a lot of what cops do is like, imagine if roads didn't exist, if there was another sort of infrastructure. A lot of their job is, pulling over people who might be in trouble, checking traffic. Because I mean, it's such a big problem, especially in the States where, like, I know where you are, things are people bike around more, right? People are using other forms of
yeah, but
transit.
we have also the infrastructure so completely dedicated to it. I actually watched
Yeah.
a video where an American talks about his experience in Dutch traffic for bicycle roads, and we have dedicated bicycle roads. You don't have that.
No, that's actually
One of the
that's
things that he
wild.
said was like, I came to Amsterdam and I asked for a bicycle map. And if you ask that to a Dutch person, like, what the hell are you talking about? We don't have bicycle maps. We have maps. Because if you
Right.
can reach something by car, you can reach it by bicycle.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a whole, and then the whole life is different.
Yeah.
Life looks very different. Um, and it's also interesting to imagine, like, what if that infrastructure was different? Like, what if, what if 200 years ago we decided not to have cars, not to have roads, but this other thing?
Well, I actually have a interesting one for that because in my universe, they actually managed to create wireless energy. So they have
Hmm.
these massive toadstool-like structures that provide wireless energy. So people have like antennas on the house. I've not really fleshed it out. I just wrote the story about how it came to be. And why the association allowed this technology to exist in the first place. It's all it's a lot about diplomacy and bargaining and why do people things. I go very deep into that stuff, and yeah, so I'm also thinking of calling the role playing game the Association of Ishtar the Wireless Age for that reason, because they've got so yeah,
That would be cool. I love
yeah,
it.
yeah. Yeah, so yeah, you can subscribe to my Ream. And anyway, do you want to promote yourself as you sign off? Where can people find you?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, if you want to check out Bream, uh, go check out go check out Art's Bream actually, and then you could go and you could click the homepage from there. That's where I actually recommend going. Go check out your Bream. But if you want to learn more about me personally, my website is M Evans, so M and then EVANS, then inked, which is INKED.com. It's kind of kind of writerly. Michael Evans was not available. It's a pretty common name, but yeah, you could go find me there, and then check out Ream. We have a lot of cool things there. But no, this was amazing. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. Okay. Well, one thing I like to do on my podcast is to end with some words of wisdom of our guests. So, have you some final words of wisdom to share?
Final words of wisdom, man. I mean, if there's anything I've learned in my life, it's that you want to stay grounded in the moment. As much as we can talk about the history and the future, which mean you both very interested, and I imagine the people listening are quite interested as well. The moment and living moment to moment is really where the magic of life is. And when you should definitely think very, very hard and diligently on how you want to spend your moments and who you want to spend them with. Those are the two most important questions. And if you can spend your moment with people you enjoy, doing things you enjoy, and giving yourself the flexibility for that to evolve, um, it that's a good life in my opinion. No matter what you want to do and where you're from, you can take steps forward to do that today, one moment at a time.
All right. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for being here. It was a very interesting conversation. And with that, I hope everyone listening or watching this also had a good time today. And with that, everyone, thank you so much for being with us to the end. And as always, make things your way.